But there wasn't.
There wasn't last
There wasn't.
week.
It's the first Asia Torah Lunch and Learn of 2015. Start with a bang. It's always, it's good to have beginnings. It's good to have lots of new beginnings because it motivates the person. Right? For us, it's like Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, and I always kind of calculate things then. But this time of year is really the beginning for so many reasons, right? The tax year ends, obviously, and the finding people get their bonuses this time of year. Like it's, in so many ways, you're accustomed to this being the beginning of the year. When I was in college, used to start working out because the beach season was coming in a couple months. That was like the beginning of college. Went to college in Gainesville, Florida. It was like all these beach seasons down there. But that's I remember, there was this time that you thought about your future. So I want to talk about goal setting. I want to talk about also, every year on this time of year, like when I go through my list of like what I want to achieve, is I find I have like the same list. I pull up the list from like 2005. Like it's the exact same list. Not much to change. The same goals. I want to lose weight, work out a little bit more, make more money, be a better husband. Raise my kids better, spend more time, be more patient. Like all those things, the same thing going on again. And so it's very hard. And I just saw this book. There's a book called the the 4 hour whatever, the 4 hour something he calls it, he has the 4 hour body. Cut all your body fat in 2 10-minute sessions a week. You know what I'm saying? Now it's a bestseller, so I'm like intrigued. I couldn't spend $11 on Amazon. I'm gonna get it cheaper than that, like Gap.com or something. We'll see. But everyone wants to set goals this year. And a good friend of mine, Jack Dweck, who actually offered this class and teaches at Brook College, interviewed many people, dozens of people who went through difficult situations. Either someone who had a business and lost money, or maybe someone who was in a bad relationship and never got better. Someone who had a special needs child, that can be a very difficult thing. Someone who got divorced and didn't work out so well. All the things in life that are difficult, right? And he interviewed them, and some people are wondering how they keep on going, right? How does a person keep on going? And he said he came up with 6 steps, which I'm going to talk about, the 6 steps I'm talking about. And they're a very important, concept underlying them, which was actually new to me. And then I'll talk about why I think that underlying concept works. Okay? So it's like more like a practical how-to class as opposed to like all those quotes that make you feel good. Okay? So I was thinking also, I'm reading 2 books now on the Lubavitch Rebbe, Rav Schneerson, Sal passed away. And it was interesting because he achieved so much with his life. And you see Chabad now, like they're everywhere, They're in Russia. I went to Russia 15 years ago. The people who kept going in Russia are like standing Jewish. They're like all over the place. How do these guys live there? Who knows? Like they're everywhere. You want to go to a meeting this morning. My father, Ben Shmuel, passed away 3 months ago. And he had a Chabad rabbi in St. Petersburg, Florida. They're everywhere. So Rabbi Schneerson left the world without children. Right? He never had children. And the Satmar Rav had 3 daughters. He buried all 3 of them in his lifetime. The Chaim Ozer had 1 daughter and buried her. Tremendously great people who we all respect and look up to. And it became that this adverse situation, which would maybe have felled lesser people, was just like an instant in their life. They were still a great person. By the way, this one chapter, they had a difficult personal situation. And when we have difficult situations, we really don't want to wallow in a pity party. We want to get through it the right way. So how do we do that? So before I get into this, I'll tell you guys a story. One of my earlier clients at Merrill. So I started Merrill Lynch maybe 15 years ago, and I met a guy in the office whose name was Matt Callahan. I met Matt Callahan. He was in very good shape. And he was interested that I had a yarmulke on. Like, what do you, just tell me about the Jewish. We didn't know anybody with a yarmulke on. It's not like New York City where everyone's got a yarmulke on. Right? It's not like that. And we got to talking. So Matt grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. He was a superstar hockey player. I was a very average hockey player, but he was a superstar hockey player. One of the superstars. He was an Archbishop of Devils. And in the summertime, like all good Irish people, I worked in construction. So from 9th grade on, he worked in construction, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and through college. I think he went to Drexel, for college, and worked all the time in construction. And when he finished college, he already been there 8 years. The company doubled in size, from a small operation to a very significant company. And by the time he was 30 years old, the company had been around now at that time, I guess 15 years. It was a major like they built, like you were saying, they built city projects, right? They would build a hospital, or they would build a highway. They did major projects like that. At 30 years old, he was president of the company, right? And he was making money, and that's when he became the client of mine. Because I'm an equal opportunity advisor. Anybody making money, become my client, no problem. But Matt had one problem, which I want to talk about, which is his downfall, which is, it's going to sound like a cliche, but he liked to drink alcohol a lot, right? And he never knew until the very end that it was bad for him. So he would drink, he was married, a couple of kids, started to drink, and people said to him, hey, Matt, it's getting a bit out of hand. You were home late last night. He wasn't like abusive, but he wasn't like there for his kids the right way, or there for his wife emotionally the right way. All those things happened. So he went to get counseling, he went to the parish, but he himself said, I'm fine. What do you mean? I had a great job, I have a great family. And his wife said to him, look, Matt, either you go, or I'm going to go. He was like, you're going to go? What do you great life, you don't work, you buy whatever you want. The kids are in, private schools here. What are you talking about? And another year by, when she leaves, drinking got that bad. Fine, and that was like a small wake-up call, but not a major wake-up call. Still a client, still making lots of money. She took her part, he took his part. Fine. A couple years later, it got worse, right? It affected his job at work. That's like, if you've ever seen a person like self-destruct, like I watched this man. I'm not going to go in here. I watched this man like self-destruct, right? So it got bad at work, and his workers started telling, his boss, he's not doing a good job. So Matt also said, well, they're just jealous of me, I'm the top guy, and they're older, not doing as well, whatever it is. He didn't hear it. And in that type of role, in a construction company, you probably know, you have to interact with the city officials, and you have to talk to the press sometimes. Like, it's not just like digging a ditch. Like, there's like stuff to do with people who don't necessarily don't like the fact that you may be inebriated at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's not, it's not good. Didn't take the lesson. A couple years later, his boss calls him in, Matt, I love you like his son. I'm letting you go. Couldn't believe it, right? Now, at this point, he's still a client of mine, making a lot of money, lets him go. Kept on drinking, and he was sure. He used to go every day at about 12 o'clock to one of the fancier hotels, the Belt bars in Philadelphia, and sit in the lobby the bar from like 12 to 4, sipping whatever drinks it was, knowing that a headhunter was going to pick him up, to get hired, and go next, huge Turner Construction, big company. Nothing happened. And he drank away his savings, his house, his car, his 401k plan the next couple of years, right? Like, it was just, you couldn't believe, like, you were talking to a person, and you could have a conversation with him. He just wasn't buying. He was like, hey, I'm fine, I'm doing great, I know it's a little money out, but I'll get a job tomorrow. Like, it was a surreal thing to watch, right? Anyway, how did he rock bottom? Not yet. He lost everything. I used to give him, now it's like, money. I used to give him money, like $50 here and there. I just, give him money. And so if you're ever really broke, you can only sell your blood. You can sell your blood to blood bank. You can sell your plasma. It's true. You can sell your plasma. You can make about $250 a month selling your plasma and blood. You get it every week, Monday morning, 9 o'clock. I guess you can't drink them. You drink afterwards, whatever that. He was selling his blood, but even that wasn't enough, right? What got him? What is downward spiral? That if you had worked in corporate America, so I work at Merrill Lynch, and I worked at Goldman Sachs before, now Bank of America. The United Way is like the biggest charity in corporate America. So the United Way, you can designate where the funds go to, but like when we have a campaign every year, they expect 100% participation. You can say, you can log in and choose not to participate, that's also okay, but they want everyone to at least take it seriously, to give money, to help the world, so everyone, my friend, if you don't log in, I encourage you to log in and say yes or no. They don't care if you give $2, you give nothing, but you have to log in, like, you say yes or no. It's that kind of big firm thing. They went through a culture of helping other people. Just be aware. Fine. So, and at my firms, it's always one of the top 10 people in the firm who run the campaign, right? It's a guy who's like very prestigious. He runs the United Way campaign. That's his job. And it's a very honorable thing to get that nod. So at Matt's company, he ran the United Way campaign. Very big job. Now, I met him in the elevator at my work at 1650 Market Street in Philadelphia, which is one of the nicest buildings in downtown Philly. It's called the One Liberty Center, right? There's a Ritz-Carlton in there. It's a beautiful hotel. It's beautiful. And so Matt, for the years I was there, he ran United Way campaign, his company. I did not run it. Reynolds, someone in Europe did. And there was, there would be like a big thing in the lobby, United Way. So he ended up, he was begging for money in front of the building from the same people, right? The same people who he was once in charge of the United Way campaign for, and he couldn't bring himself to do it. That was like public. It wasn't private, getting blood smear. It was he couldn't imagine. And so finally, like he checked into, rehab addicts, whatever it was. And I want to say, you're published already, like he's not what I would call successful now. He's off the streets. He's working in construction, and he lost 10 years of his life doing that. But that's when he hit rock bottom. And I just want to say here that we all know that on the way down, one thing affects everything, right? His drinking affected a person's divided into like five dimensions. This one study, this guy says 5 dimensions, they say. And what are the guys? Charles Duhigg, Oaten and Cheng. It's in 5 dimensions, where a person has a physical life like exercising and financial. Okay, you're making a buck, right? But that always worries about. Someone always said the joke is happiness can't buy money. Right? Happiness can't buy money. You can't just be happy. You have money. And physically, people so physical, financial, emotional is a big one. Spiritual, and then kind of intellectual, where you're like stimulating yourself. I saw a stat once that after high school, 95% of Americans don't read like a non-fiction book. They'll read like something, but they'll read like Sports Illustrated. They're not going to read like a history book. People just don't read it. They don't educate themselves anymore, right? In New York City, it's not that way, but outside the country, outside this area, it is that way. And so on the way down, one area affects everything. This guy Matt had a drinking problem. It affected him emotionally and spiritually, and obviously financially. It affected his emotions, his marriage, his relationship with God, everything, right? Everything. So what their theory is this. The theory is this. He says that on the way back up, it's the same thing. The things are interdependent on the way back up as well, right? That you have these 5 spheres of life, and they're interdependent. We're going to go through the 6 steps and what the interdependency is. I'll tell you some more stories also in the meantime. And then we'll talk about why I think it's the most important takeaway is that. So, and the first thing is this: when you're doing anything, let's say you hit rock bottom like this guy Matt does, or another example. So a friend of mine in Jerusalem. So she was. So I'm now like observant, right? Orthodox Jew, whatever that means, right? So I grew up actually relatively normal. I didn't grow up observant business. I grew up a regular secular kid in America. And when you get Orthodox, when you become more observant, so a lot of your world paradigm shifts. So this woman, she had a big emotional problem. What was the emotional problem? She grew up, say, in Boston, but she had a little sister 9 years younger than her, who was like the youngest of the whole family. And the sister, it was her, 2 brothers and sister. And she was so happy she had a sister. It's like, you have all brothers, the girl wants like a sister. She was sick of the boy, she wants someone to talk to her. She wanted a sister. And they were best friends growing up. She remembers telling her mother, if it's a boy, she's going to run away from home. She wants a girl. But then when this little girl was, when my friend was 18 and left the home, this girl was 9. So she left the home, the older one, went to Israel and kind of became a changed person. And the younger girl grew up without her older sister in the house, but they were still very, very close. They still loved the outdoors, loved being healthy, and all those kind of things. And yet, when it got to time when they were older, so the younger girl and the old couldn't relate to the older girl because the older one had gotten religious, got involved, and she couldn't connect anymore. Because when you get Orthodox, it's almost like what's the fun? Talk about your deep goals and your ambitions for the future and spiritual things like that. And if you're not into that, you talk about whatever, politics or going to a game or whatever, it's fun things to do, whatever you have different topics of conversation. So the younger sister felt extremely judged by the older sister, which is a natural feeling, right? Because sometimes you feel you're holier than thou. We're doing it. Why do we keep showing us? God commanded us. So you do. You're not doing it. That's the implied message. As much as you want to be friends with them, and it's hard to be that way and not come across somewhat as you judge it. It's very hard. And I can hear the younger person's position. Even the older sister did whatever she could not to be that way. She talked about the cool topics, and she whatever she could do. It didn't work. And so for 10 years, the younger sister did not want anything to do with the older sister in her way of life really at all. Didn't come to the event, and didn't call or do anything. So that was a problem, and that was her problem. Go through how she solved that problem. But that was the problem she had, which is that relationship problem happens to many, many people in life. And how do you solve? What steps you take to solve that kind of relationship problem? Okay, here are the steps. The first thing to know is this: when you ever have an uncomfortable situation, that's the sign that it's good for you, right? If it's too comfortable, it ain't good. It's got to be uncomfortable to make it work. If it's too easy, it's not going to produce any results for you, right? You have to do things that are uncomfortable. The first step is this: whenever anything happens, you have to face it that there's a God in the world, that things are happening for a reason, right? It's not just random. That gives a tremendous sense of purpose, right? A tremendous sense of purpose. So one is things happen for a reason. The second is this, right? The second is you have to forgive everybody involved in it, that it wasn't their fault. You can't blame people for your career, your relationships, your lack of success, your gaining weight, the fact that your mother, likes your sister better, you can't blame anybody for that, right? You have to take responsibility yourself. That's a very hard thing to do. Most people go through the blame game many, many times in life. There was a man I'm watching, so he was born without a right leg, and with 2 fingers on this hand and 1 finger on this hand, right? A real person born, now imagine you grow up, your parents, your kid, you have a baby, and the kid's born, he's missing a leg, 2 fingers here, 1 finger here, you think there's something meant to you, like you're petrified as a parent, right? Petrified. So he grew up, and he said, so now he's a successful guy, and he's actually a motivational speaker. So he said his father was always a motivational speaker, not for the world, but for himself. He would say, "Hey kid, this isn't a pity party here, right? It's not a pity party. You can still make something of yourself." So he loved sports. Now imagine playing sports with no right leg and with 2 fingers on 2.5 fingers. How are you gonna play sports with 2.5 fingers? It's not gonna work, right? So he played football, and he played tennis. He had some cool way to hold the racket. And he was 46-6 in high school. He played Division I tennis. And he was captain of the team. Now you become captain because they feel bad for you. But no one's going to throw 46 games against that. He was a good tennis player. So he says one scene was, troops were happening to him. He was playing 10th grade football. I played football in high school. You know the joke about the definition of a bar mitzvah? The definition of bar mitzvah is the age in which a Jewish boy recognizes he's got a greater chance of owning a pro sports team than ever playing for one. I played football until about 10th grade. He's got to get much bigger than me. That's the end of it. So he's playing football, and he says he's playing defensive end, and he's got to rush the quarterback in the defensive end. And someone got to the quarterback first, and the ball bounced out right into his arms. He can't pick it up. It bounced right in there. So he couldn't not grab it. He could not grab it. So my goodness, he got the ball, and he starts running to the end zone, right? The quarterback's over here. There's really nothing between him and the end zone. So he starts running. Now he's got a bad leg. How fast can he go? He doesn't have a bad leg there. But he's running. And he gets to the 30 and the 20. So about the 10-yard line, a kid catches up with him, right, from the other team. Because how fast can this kid be going with 1 leg? And so he grabs him, jumps him, but he tackles his bad leg. Now the bad leg falls off, right? Middle of the field, bad leg falls off. Now people in the stands are like, no one's like, if you know the kid, if you imagine watching the game, the kid's leg falls off right there. The whole place. He says the play that he hops and falls the other 5 yards into the end zone. Touchdown. You know what I mean? So everyone knows, what happened. So they went to the. Is he okay? Is he dead? What happened to his leg? And the coach comes to the ref. The other opposing coach says, "Tackle him." He said, "How do you call that?" He said, "No, his knees never touched the ground." He called it a touchdown. Right? So touchdown, true story. So this story is in one of those books, right? One of those books that are, it's a good story. How your biggest, he never blamed his lack of leg. He never said blamed it on someone. Right? Never blamed it. He always took responsibility himself. He never said, "Oh, I can't succeed because I got a fake leg and 2 fingers." Never. He always took responsibility, and that's when he became successful. So many of us do the exact opposite, right? So it's in this book, and he said that he got a letter from a guy. "Hey, Steve, you never believe this." He says, "I'm the guy who tackled you. The story's just like you told it. I remember the tackle. I grabbed it, took it. The silly leg fell off of my hand." He says now he's a football coach. The guy who tackled him. And every year they get together with the students and tell them that story. right? Because it's important when you're in this process never to blame your lack of success or your failure or whatever it is on somebody else. There's always ways to change it. Always ways to change it. Right? We had a interesting mistake in the past 2 weeks. 2 children passed away. A 2-year-old kid was hit by a car, passed away. He was actually in Lakewood. It was the same family. When you're outside, you're playing, your kids playing, all of a sudden you get, you say, oh my goodness, when those phone calls happen, you crumble, right? No one says, why me, when your kids come home from school with a bloody nose or someone's teasing you. You don't say, why me, when they have dinner and they go to bed a little bit late. You never say, why me. All of a sudden, when that happens, you say, why me, right? But you you never say, why me the other way. And just 3 days ago, I was listening to Shiva, there was a young man, I believe he took his own life. Right? His parents, were around, he was 20 years old, something like that. How do you bury your kids? The worst thing ever, right? My father passed away, so we had the proper burial for my father. So you're supposed to bury your parents, it was far too early for me. But that's the way of the world, right? After that, you get over it because it's better the other way. So you have to always in life whenever you have an adversity, you're gonna say these steps out loud, right? One is, it's not anybody else's fault but myself, it's just my fault, and there's a reason for it. That's the second step. Right? The third step is this. You have to be able to learn from every experience you have, right? You gotta learn from it. There's a nugget in everything. In everything. It's funny, a friend of mine is tragic, it's a person. A rabbi I know for many, many years, a friend of mine from 20 years ago, his daughter was hit by a car in Florida last year, 13 years old, busy intersection, passed away. So everybody goes to a funeral, right? The funeral was packed, 2,000 people. He's crying, we're all crying. The girl when she was born, I don't want to change her diaper, but I definitely carry her on my shoulder, definitely. And I said to myself after that, I said, you know what? I'm going to make it to every simcha I possibly can. Because to a funeral, everybody goes, right? You go to a funeral, everybody goes. But your friend gets married in Texas, he doesn't need me to go. I got to get on a plane, it's 4 hours away. I got to stay over. I'm going to dance. He's got his family, or he's not going to care. I got to come back. Who needs it, right? And I'll be fine without me. Since this happened, I said, you know what? I want to get on planes for funerals. I'm going to get on planes for good things too. And I'm going to make it a point to, celebrate every silly little thing I can with people. Why? Because if not, you're done. And that's how you build relationships. That's how you build relationships. Is you get to all the good things. So the first comes from God. The second is, right, don't blame anybody else, right? And the third is that there's always something to learn from. There's a famous story, number 2, that was in Israel in 1967 in the war. There was a woman who was an aguna. Aguna means her husband didn't let her get remarried, never gave her a get. And she was in the bomb shelter. She had a miserable life because for 25, 30 years, whatever, she couldn't get remarried. This guy treated her terribly. And in the middle of the bombs falling, now we know Israel's a tough country. Back then, it was just after Israel got their independence 20 years later. People who knew, right? People thought Israel was going to be in the sea. But no one, it wasn't like this day where it's like, okay, these countries are just a nuisance. No one thought that back then. It was Israel's going to die. She stands up in the bomb shelter and says, she screams at the top of her lungs, I forgive him for everything he's done for me. She says, God, I forgive him. I bear no grudges. I forgive him, right? And so they say that there was a rabbi there that said that her forgiving him is what merited them all being saved, right? But it's a huge weight off your shoulders when you forgive other people, because the only person who's renting real estate in your head is them, right? It's like, would you give away Manhattan real estate for free? Someone's in your head, you're bearing a grudge, you're holding it deep inside, and you're going to show them one day, they could care less about you, but you're keeping it in your head. You have to let all that stuff go. Because since there is really God, and there's a higher purpose, that's the important thing. So that's the forgive them and then learn from it. And then you have to, but I found these things, I
was talking to somebody about a month ago, and she was telling me she's doing a lot better than she used to be doing. But she resents how she's getting treated now. Now that she's doing well, she resents that it's the same type of people who used to not be as good to her. And I said, for better or for worse, you have to stop doing that, because otherwise you're going to let the same people theoretically victimize yourself in your own mind when they don't even know you from before. You're letting them win, so to speak. You gotta let that go. Otherwise, anytime somebody's being good to you, you're just gonna be standing there thinking, well, they wouldn't have been good to you back then.
Well, you gave her very good advice. Look, those things are the hardest things in life. It's like, God puts us in a world with so many difficult personalities, right? And truth is, the one is human beings we're all very sensitive people. We all want things our way. We all have our own views. We all want things to be going in our direction, right? And everyone has an ego, right? Everybody, and everybody has things. That's how God made us all, right? Nobody doesn't have something they care about, right? Some people in business, they care about, I work in Merrill Lynch, so last it's like, who's the biggest producer, right? It's the silliest thing in the world. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? But you're always, they rank you to bring in healthy competition, so you can make money, but you just make more. It drives you crazy, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, so with other people, that's not their thing. But their thing may be wisdom or knowledge or publishing, whatever it is. But everybody's got something they care about, right? God made us egocentric, and that's what keeps us going in life. But you have to be so careful about other people's ego, and you have to know how to the key thing is knowing how do you say the right things. And some people, some people you can't say the right thing to. Some people, their nerves are very, very wrong. Some people go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I recommend the two books very, very highly. So the person had no children. So a couple like that has no children. So now he's the Rebbe. But it's painful. You see all the other people, and he loved the children. He started summer camps. He loved children. But some people, and even so, you've got to do the right thing yourself and try to find a way to do it. That's how you get along in life. That's how you get along in life. So the first thing you have to take an inventory yourself of the things you have to be grateful for, right? In these areas, I remember when my father passed away, so it was very hard for me. It's very hard for me now. And it was sudden. He was overseas. He's diabetic. Diabetics usually don't pass away instantly. He went to diabetic shock. And that's it. He passed away. There wasn't any time to say goodbye to him. We couldn't go joke about the old times. We couldn't paint pictures of when I was a little kid, the dog I had. We couldn't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. Gone. And so very, very hard. But, so I tried to think, look, I had him for many, many years, right? And we were very, very close. We spoke 3-4 days a week. I went to see him. We spent a week together traveling in Israel just a month before he passed away. My first reaction was, how could God take it from me right now? We were going to spend a week together here, taking vacation, just him and I, right? We're going to go to Europe together, every summer, plan a 7-day trip, just father and son, while he was still healthy and while my kids were still in the stage where I could do that, get away with it, you know what I'm saying? We're going to do that. And it didn't happen. And believe me, I was angry, I was just angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at my father for not taking care of himself, But after a while, it's a silly emotion to have. Like, no one cares about him, how are you angry for it? It was much easier to let it go and just think about the good things. So I started thinking all the things we had together, right? And and that also is not an easy process because a lot of things I missed. But it practically helps. That's number 4. Now, number 5 is this. You have to think about how you can help others. How you can help others with what you went through. And that's also a very cathartic process. Yeah.
Do you mind if I just ask a question or share something
like
20 or 30 seconds?
Yeah.
I hope this isn't too deep, but I go to these things now because I'm trying to set myself up emotionally and spiritually for years to come. I went through kind of a difficult time in my life where my sister and I, within a 1-year period, almost lost both of our parents, and we didn't lose either of them. And like 5 years ago, we were very, very close to losing my father. 4 years ago, we were very, very close to losing my mother. And they both made it. And I've become almost too close to my parents because I just wake up every day and think that it's just such a miracle that they're alive, and now my sister's going to have a kid, and I'm going to be an uncle and everything. And I go to these things now because I'm already scared for 10, 15 years from now when they're not here, just because they made it through and these past few years have been so good that I go to these things because I don't really know how to prepare myself for the future.
Look, I know you're saying a great point. There's no particular wisdom, answer those things. I think you're doing the right thing. I think you just appreciate what you have. We all get out of this world one way. You know, we all are going to die. We're all going to die. It's 100% certain. And it's painful, you know. It's very painful, those things. You lose a relationship like that, and you're so... How many close relationships do people really have? You know, there's not so many close relationships. And, you know, I think you're doing the right thing. I would tell you spend more time, you cherish that more, and when it happens, God will give you the strength to go through that too. You know, people do the strength through it. I think, you know, says you have to, anything you do, when you go through tough times, you have to figure out, how can you make better for others? What can you do to help, right? What can you do to help? I'll tell you two stories. There was a man that's all for the boss, Yaakov Herman. So he was a well-known person in America in the 1920s. He was a very fervent person who clung to the Jewish rituals when no one else did. And he lost all his money in the Depression, except for like $300. Like he lost which probably was $10,000 today. Like he lost everything, right? Everything. Everyone lost everything. With his last money, I remember he sent like $290 to the yeshiva in Baranovich, you know, in Europe. His last money. If you go, well, if I lost everything, most people think you lose everything, so what you have, conserve, right? He said, no, if I lost everything, might as well do something with what I have left that's so transient, I should do something good with this. He sent it away to the yeshiva, and with $10 printed up a calendar, right? So the yeshiva tells them they got this check, it's about to close down, they're going to tell the boys that morning to, you know, go home and give them some bread and jelly to go home because there's no food for them. And lo and behold, they're ready to tell the boys after breakfast. And the Rosh Hashanah that morning got the check, and they stayed open for, you know, that was enough for like, you know, a couple of months, and then things worked themselves out. You know, so it's just such an unusual reaction. Like that's not the natural thing to do. Is to say, oh my goodness, I lost everything. I got to conserve what I have, right? And not help other people. That's the most natural thing. The unnatural thing to do is do what he did. So going through all these steps, you have to do what's unnatural to you. You have to do what's unnatural. Right? So the fifth step is to, you know, try to help other people with what you've learned. And there's a million ways to do that, right? It's funny, I mean, when you go through the year of being an avil for a year, for a mourning for your parent, it's a very hard process. The first thing, what you want to do is not talk to anyone. The person passes away, I wanted to hibernate in my house and not talk to anybody. And you sit and shiver in a chair like this, and people come in the room. It's like a funny process, because your best friend can come in, who like knows your father really well, knew you really well, you want to have a heart-to-heart, and then right 2 minutes later comes like the numbnik in town, who you don't know at all, you know what I'm saying? But they come together. And so you're forced to like talk to this numbnik and your best friend at the same time. You can't talk too deep, you know, and you gotta, and when you start talking, you know, because God wants you, that's like a cathartic process. And it's an unnatural process. The natural thing is want to hibernate. I didn't want to talk to anybody, right? Anybody. But you're forced to talk it out. And then the first year, I have to lead the davening every year, right? I have to get to service 3 times a day. I think, I don't know, now I feel a little better. It's been 4 months, right? But the first month, I didn't want to go out at all, anywhere. I didn't want to go, you know, to serve people. But I have for my father, I got to go. So like I go, you know what I'm saying? But that gets you out. And that starts the process of coming back to life that way. And then I got to lead the services. Many mornings I'm like, let someone else do it. But you know, I got to do it for my father, so I do it. So it obligates you, and therefore it, you know, fixes a person. So the 6th step is this: take positive steps to turn the situation around, and you know, and help other people. So I want to tell you one more story, and then I want to tell you why I think the takeaway from these studies these people did was that when they had people, where's the study I have here? They had people in Australia, right? They said they got 15 couch potatoes together. They said, we're going to make you guys exercise. We're going to pay you money, you're going to exercise. Come to the gym once a day, personal trainer, and they were like, you know, out of shape, 10 push-ups, 20 push-ups, 30 push-ups. 2 months later, they were like, you know, running half a mile, doing push-ups, whatever it was. So surprisingly, at the same time, not only was their physical health better, but they said they were like more engaged emotionally. They called someone in to get along with, right? They were more motivated at work. It wasn't just that their health got better, it was everything else got better. Maybe not to the same degree, but other things worked as well, even though it wasn't, you know, their focus. The focus was just physical health, but the other 5 areas also got better. And they did a second study where they had people, you make specific goals at work, right? We're going to coach you through your work process, right? And they said that people got much better in 6 months at work, and then other things also got better, right? That they read a book, or they decided to get up early and exercise, or they cut out, chocolate chip cookies. Whatever it was, the other things also got better, even though the study was in one area. And they said, so why is that? Why the other things get better when the study is just in this one area? What's going on? But that was their takeaway. That was the takeaway. And so, why? So I'm going to talk about the most important part of how to get through an adverse situation is this, I think. And this is why I think that they're all correlated together. There's a famous story. If you go to the beach in Mexico or somewhere, and there's a fisherman. There's a fisherman. He's a hobo. He's fishing, and you say to him, "Why do you fish?" He said, "Well, I've caught a fish this morning, and I'm lying on the beach all day long." So why do that? If you caught 10 fish and you stayed all day long on the boat, you caught 10 fish, you could buy a fishing boat. Is that what I'm doing? You can buy a fishing boat. You could hire an employee. You could get 2 fishing boats. You could get twice as much fish. Well, then what would I do? But then you could hire 4 boats and 5 boats. And then you could get a canning company. You could take the fish from the boats with your 20 employees, and then you could hire guys to can them yourself. You could buy a big factory, go to a bank, borrow money, buy even a bigger factory, sell the fish to all sorts of people, wherever you live. You become a fishing magnet, right? You could be filthy rich. You have all the fish in the world. You'd be rich. Is that what I'm doing? But then you could sell your company for a lot of money. Is that what I do? But then you can sit on the beach and you can fish all day long. You can relax all day long on the beach. He said, "Well, I'm already on the beach relaxing. Why do that?" Right? And that's like the joke. I'm already doing what the goal is. So why do that? So it's a famous, story, right? So it's cute. But what's missing with the hobo's logic? What's missing? It sounds great, right? We all want to work really hard. Why? So we can retire, move to South Beach, Miami, get a $40 million condo, exercise on the beach. It's like, why are we gonna, so that's all. So she goes, go there, right? Move there now to somewhere else, and that's it. What's the point? The hobo's logic. He's missing a very important part of life. They said by Alexander the Great, he conquered the entire world when he was 33 years old. He went to East India, around the ocean there, and he cried because he conquered the entire world. So why did he cry? He says because a person in life has to have goals. Has to have goals, right? That's the key in life. It keeps a person energy, vitality. You have to get up and move. You have to know what to do, and you have to have goals. He says, and there's a big. The Torah says that when Moshe built the Mishkan, the base of Mikdash in the desert, so it says, the Midrash says these were they. He built the Mishkan like oy they. It's like the best thing that's like the best thing. You built the Mishkan, like you should be ecstatic. No, Moshe. For the past year or two, he was busy with the Mishkan. They had to get all the supplies. They had to talk to the architect. They had to talk to the unions to get the workers to come in, right? They had to get the electrical workers union in. They had to get the other union in. They had to get the shipping in, and the circles were playing at the same time. There was all these things to do in building the Mishkan. It was a tremendous amount of work. In committees, and you had email, and secretaries. It was kept everybody busy, right? And now it's done. They said they. Because the day after you achieve something, the person retires, right? He's 65 years old, he retires. Now what does he do the next day? Right? Woman raises kids for 20 years. Now what do they do when the kids are out of the house? What do they do, right? Someone gets a job or someone gets married, right? And he goes to work. And what does she do all day long? What do you do now, right? So having idle time or not having goals is very, very dangerous for a person. It's dangerous. A person always has to have goals. And the reason why I think there's this ancillary effect, why if you focus on one area of these 5 dimensions, your physical area, or your financial area, or your emotional area, that it by definition helps the other ones, is because you have energy again. You have vitality again. You're moving forward in one area. And once you have that energy, it has to help somebody else. So I think one big takeaway is, don't worry about fixing everything. Every problem you have. I got a list of, you're studying of computers now, like the Excel spreadsheet, the Kurt Stein 2015 Excel spreadsheet, how to make life better. 40 things in category 1 and 32 in category 2, and you can subdivide them. If you change the goal here, makes it up by 4.2%. That one's down by 3%, and you push go, and there you go. There's your plan. Forget that. Work on one area, and the energy in the area will carry other things around. And that, because a person with that energy gets you up in the morning. And one of the hardest things in these tragedies, right? A person loses a job. You think, who am I? What am I going to do? right? If back to the street tells you a guy lost a huge customer, who destroyed his business, he jumped out of a window, killed himself because that was who he was. You can understand that, right? Understand that. But you need to focus. You just have to jump in one area, and that area will propel you much further than you think, because the energy will be alive again, right? Have a goal, right? Make a goal. You're getting 20 push-ups a day. What I'm doing now, I'm learning Tanakh. They have a program at the OU, do it in English. I'm learning now one chapter of Tanakh every single day. So in 2 years' time, I'm not sure you're through already, I'm going to finish all of the chapters of the Tanakh, which is like, I haven't done it in many, many years. I figure if nothing else happens this year, at least I'll have that under my belt. And that takes me 5 minutes a day. When it's boring, if it's good, I do it more. I'm saying, it's boring. But on the boring days, I read it. On the good days, I get something out of it, right? But that's the key. That I think is the big takeaway, is that you have to have a goal. And if you're small than one of these 5 areas, and if you do that, then you'll see that other things will follow. So I want to repeat these 5 things again. So one is, we said, it has to be uncomfortable, right? It's got to be, two is, there's going to be an inflection point. You're going to get so low, so sick and tired, boom, something's going to happen. Yeah, and then you're going to like this guy, Matt, he was asking for quarters in the One Liberty place, boom, right? There's always an inflection point. You wake up, enough chocolate bonbons, what I'm saying? Enough, enough. Huh? So you had to pick a goal. One is make it uncomfortable, right? It has to be comfortable with yourself. And then you have to say, there's a reason for this to happen, God's the reason. And number 2 is forgiving everybody. It's no one's fault. My own, it wasn't my job, the economy, the fact that, girls never liked me in high school, and none of those things. That's it. That's it. Number 2, the only person responsible is me. Number 3 is that, what are you going to learn from this? There's going to be some practical takeaways from this, right? Number 4, make a list of those areas of what you really do have, right? What you still do have, because it gives you energy. Number 5, how you can help other people. That motivates a person a lot, right? And number 6, have an action plan. And the reason why the action plan works is, when you have goals, it gives you a renewed energy. And the key in life is always having a goal. At 20, at 30, at 40, at 50, at 60, you'll see. Your goal can't be your kids. Work's a great goal. Work is have a good goal, or have a goal to make more money. Why not, right? You gotta make more money. Do more things spiritually, right? Try to make one goal. My friend has a hidden goal. He does one thing each week for other people that they don't know about. He says he's got a neighbor who doesn't have the kid has much money. So one morning he gets like 5 in the morning. He's got it's like a leaf blower thing, blows the leaves away. So it was in October, He gets up in the morning, he goes to their house, gets the leaf blower, clears the whole thing. They wake up, who the heck cleared the leaves? I'm saying? No idea, what I'm saying? Somebody sent the book to anonymous. Here's a book, the guy wanted a book, sent him a book anonymously. Amazon.com, probably not anonymous. All those things, right? So that's when you set a goal for yourself in one area, right? And I think this is a good area too. Help other people. You can always help other people. It'll give you an energy. It'll give you a fire. And when you have a fire, the other things will become better as well. You have a question?
It's like, I'm just thinking this up right now, but it's like, here's a zero sum against the alternative. And you can't just say it's not zero sum because it is zero sum. And you want to do something, you want to get somewhere. The alternative is that you don't get there, and that's going to take you in the other direction. So then you accomplish something, you get to a certain plateau. Then you can't think that you've gotten there. It has to be zero sum because you have to start again. Zero sum against some other alternative. Otherwise, you're going in that direction.
Staying good. You're right. Yeah.
You mentioned before about this young lady who died in a car crash. That there were 2,000 people at funerals, and one of the things you took away is you wanted to go to all this because you feel that there are more people who go to get the energy to go to the funerals. You actually want to share the good times. Isn't there a way to flip that around? Say like what we call fear of better people. People who show up at the weddings, but it's difficult.
You're right.
Or what's your point on that, and how would you rebut my?
So you're saying good. So it gets personal. You're saying right. Some people they don't want to go to the bad things. Or it's funny. I had not made a shiva call to this man in town who lost his 20-year-old son. If you do that, I guess I just feel that